Yeah, okay, the Jentry podcast. I know that you will be loving it. We here to break it down so that you start to understand your local government. Who are the leaders? Time to get active, do something about it. Dealing with jobs, the workforce, and affordable housing. Motivate and inspire. Elevate, take it higher. For the next generation, knowledge is power for your community. Giving you the info that you really need. Time to make a change and a difference. Tune in, don't miss it. It's the Jentry. The Jentry podcast. The Jentry podcast. Making a change, switching it up.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Jentry podcast. Today's guest is a great one. This person is near and dear to my heart, and I didn't even know. So he is a husband, he is a father, and his father actually went to the DeMatha Catholic High School that I attended. So we were chatting before this. I'm like, wow, this really feels like a guy that I would have been friends with or to just hang out and have some fun with. And lo and behold, his father went to the same high school as me. But outside of being a father, a husband, and a product of DeMatha, he is the Economic Development Director of Caldwell in Idaho. Steven Jenkins, thank you for coming. It is a pleasure. We really appreciate you being here.
Jonathan, thank you for the warm introduction. That was stellar. And yes, I have some strong ties to DeMatha. Those are strong ties indeed. I'm so impressed by the network of DeMatha across the country, and it never fails. It really doesn't. So that coincidence was ironic, but something that we should come to expect by now because the lineage is strong, my friend. That's for sure.
For sure. No, I'm definitely, I bleed red, white, and blue. I told you, I served on the board of directors there. The ties are strong, and everybody listening that went to DeMatha will be very happy that we made it out to Idaho. So just tell me a little bit about your path. You have an incredible role. How did you kind of get there? This your dream job? Or did you always grow up expecting to be a economic development director?
So yes, Jonathan, great question. First and foremost, I did not want to be in Idaho in general. I fought tooth and nail to oppose getting out here. I didn't know much about it. It was very foreign to me. I actually attended Missouri State University for graduate school, and I moved here in 2013. And at the time, Idaho was really scratching the surface of its national notoriety. I had in my mind a lot of preferences. I wanted to be in a city with an NBA team, an NFL team, and all those things. And of course, Idaho didn't offer that. So I came here with the intent to turn back around and go back to Missouri or a Dallas or an Atlanta or somewhere similar to that. So I find it interesting how God uses we have our plans and God directs our steps. That's just the natural course for at least my life. And I came here and, I got into higher education. I actually was a graduate assistant instructor at Missouri State University during graduate school. So my natural progression to Idaho led me into higher education. So I started off at the College of Western Idaho and then transitioned to Boise State University, the infamous Bluefield school that's here in Boise. And then from there,
I've heard
great running back, great legacy of athletics there, which was a lot of fun to be a part of from the periphery. Of course, I was in the academic side of the house. So that was a good time. I met a lot of folks there. And then in the course of, I would just say, gosh, just good fortune, really. My wife does hair for a living. And one of her clients she's the wife of my predecessor, the former economic development director with the city of Caldwell. And he had heard that I had been perhaps looking around and seeing what opportunities exist beyond higher education. I love higher education, by the way. It was just, for me, I wanted to be around the student body. And as you progress professionally in academia, you lose that touch point with the student base. And I felt myself drifting from really that focus that I wanted to have in higher ed. So I talked to folks around town and just was looking at different opportunities, see what maybe I could get into. And Steve Foltz said, hey, let me walk you around Caldwell, show you a little bit about the city. At the time, Caldwell didn't have the best reputation. It was on, I would say, the resurgence effort. Revitalization was a really big thing in the city, and they were working on their perception locally and regionally. And I came in during really the precipice of the city doing that. So yeah, I took a tour. I bought into the vision, bought into the future. And I'll just state this. I'm an underdog naturally. I'm 5'8.5" or something like that. And I wanted to play basketball mainly because of Allen Iverson. and his influence in my life. And I felt like every little guy could make it to the NBA, right? So I felt like the underdog story for me was very much in alignment with Caldwell as a city, because you have a city really trying to fight and grow and do its own thing and be as prominent as it could be, really without the support and the help and the assistance of other cities around us, from a resource standpoint and also just from a reputation. So I really embraced that, and I felt like that was my story in and of itself. All those things led me to the city, Jonathan, and I started in 2019 as an economic development specialist. And then when Steve Foltz left to go into retirement, I stepped into this director role in 2021.
I guess I am shocked every time I ask that question to somebody. It's never just a linear, this is what I wanted to do. I took this exam, got this certification, and that's how wow, your wife was the hairdresser of the former economic development director's wife. So that is incredible. You talked about your steps being ordered. I wholeheartedly agree. And I love that the underdog story. America loves an underdog story, and how you guys are putting that together. My first question would be, what are the strategic goals of Caldwell? When did those kind of get started? Like I don't know where you guys are, new 5-year plan, or the 5-year plan from Steve Foltz, but could you kind of speak to the strategic goals right now?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I can tell you a little bit about Caldwell's history. So this is a city that is one of the oldest cities in the state of Idaho. It was formed in 1890, I believe. And really that's relatively old for this side of the country, of course, in the western states. And it was formed on the basis of being a railroad community. So transportation was integral to its creation, and agriculture is a big deal here. So that's always been a focus for us and an emphasis in this community. In fact, food processing is one of our strongest industries in this market. Strategic goal wise, we certainly want to tie ourselves back to history. We're growing at a rate annually since 2016 on average at 3.96%. And we actually had one year in 2022 where we grew at 5.2%. And we were tabbed as the 14th fastest growing city in the nation, according to the U.S. Census. So incredible growth, Jonathan. It's been an amazing ride, but we certainly don't want to lose those touch points as we grow. We want to stay connected to being a blue collar agricultural community, which is who we are. Our average age here is about 30. So we're a youthful community that has truly a pioneering spirit. And that's something that I think attracts local businesses to our community, because we have that workforce that is ingrained here that wants to work hard and has a farming background perhaps, or those types of touch points or connections. So we certainly want to keep that going. So agribusiness is a focus for us. We have a company here locally in the Boise market called Micron, and they recently announced a $15 billion expansion. So we're seeing a lot of interest from Micron because we're just 25 miles west of Boise. So a lot of that trickles into our community as well in terms of growth and strategies for growth for companies coming into our market. So that's something we're seeing as well. Logistics, warehousing, really industrial is a strong focal point for us. I mentioned Steve Foltz. He came here 30 years ago from Anderson, Indiana, and he brought with him a real true tie-in to the basic sector, which is industrial development. And we've maintained that identity. We actually have a business park here that's called Sky Ranch, and it was 400 acres of ag land that's been converted to about 2.5 million square feet of industrial space and 2,000 jobs, and has just grown tremendously over the years. So we just want to continue with that growth. We've created a new urban renewal district, which is a mechanism or a tool for economic development groups to use across the country. But for Caldwell specifically, we want to focus on what's our Sky Ranch 2.0. And really it's Northwest Caldwell. So again, focusing on that raw product through the farming and ag that we have in our community that's so prominent, but also looking at the future for growth and where we want to expand our footprint for industrial activity.
That's incredible. At the same time, you're balancing, pushing and leaning into your history, but also shaping that for the future. That shows not only that pioneering spirit, which I love that, but also the innovative spirit. And I think that's so impressive. And one question I have, when bringing larger companies, you talked about a Micron, companies that want to be near potentially a Boise, but appreciate everything that Caldwell is. and they see the value there. How do you guys utilize, if you guys utilize incentives? That's one thing that we see as a tool of many tools in the tool belt. But how are you guys using that to either encourage outside businesses or retain and grow local businesses as well?
Yeah. So Jonathan, that great question. We use urban renewal quite a bit to incentivize companies to come into our market. In Idaho, we're a very conservative state, and some of that, the conservative nature of, or the ideology of that is not as aggressive as it relates to incentive opportunities. And I will say this, in our field, we're competing with many different cities, not just regionally, but across the country. Incentives are important, but I would say the property itself, the site itself, is the most important aspect of the decision. The workforce, quality of life, those things always outweigh incentives, but you certainly want to have a bow on top of the deal when you can to tie everything together. And that's where incentives come into play, and that's where they're most effective. So in the state of Idaho, what we've done with urban renewal is we use an economic development strategy called making properties shovel ready. So I referenced Sky Ranch, and we also have an area called North Ranch, which is 114 acres. It's fully built out. It's another business park here in the city. But we use that tool to really put infrastructure in the ground. We zoned properties, we platted them, we bought properties with urban renewal and sold them at a price where, it could be used as an incentive tool. Urban renewal and cities aren't typically in the business of making money. So we said, hey, we bought this property at this amount, we'll sell it for this amount, no matter how much time has expired. We certainly want to make sure to use it as a tool to bring you in. So that's what we did. And we found tremendous success by doing that. So that's one way that we've used urban renewal and incentives to grow in our market. The other way we use it is within urban renewal, we can create these business or these job grants, these business creation job grants that we have. And we actually had a maximum of $200,000 that a company could receive. And it was $10,000 per qualified job at up to 20 jobs. And ultimately, we just asked the company to meet the average county wage, which is around $49,000 here locally in Canyon County, Idaho. And we found great success with that as well. It was really something that companies looked at that said, man, we're looking at Eugene, Oregon and Salt Lake City, Utah, that metro. We haven't seen grants like this. That's something that helps you guys stand out and really that set us apart. So those are the types of things we use. We also have a property tax exemption here locally, and that is something through Canyon County. So we work closely with our Canyon County commissioners to allocate that incentive. We have incentives through the state as well. So we have great partners that we work with here locally. And my role, I serve as an advocate for the business to get that incentive. So we tell the story as to how they align with the community or the fabric of the community, some of the historical ties that I referenced previously, and those things, but really be the mouthpiece for the business. We're the liaison typically between the business and sometimes the state, sometimes it's the county, other times it's even ourselves as a city. But in economic development, our role is to really help to advocate for the business and help to spur that investment to come into the city.
So it seems you guys have a lot of bows in the tool case. So I can definitely appreciate that. But it also seems like you're doing it very thoughtfully. One thing I always like to know is there a mechanism for tracking or metrics to make sure that these are effective uses of incentives? Just curious.
Yeah, one thing we've done really well in Caldwell is we've looked around the country quite a bit. In fact, I've spent time in other cities just connecting with economic developers from across the country, and not just through national conferences, but with more intention as far as just reaching out to cities specifically that have seen great success in a short span of time so that we're keeping up with best practices, but doing it at an intimate level and understanding what's been done well. So one thing that we did with our downtown, and I don't want to get too far off track with your question, so let me make sure I stay on track, Jonathan, because I'm kind of like a squirrel at times, but our downtown is, we built a plaza downtown. It's called Indian Creek Plaza. And we looked at a city called Rapid City, South Dakota, and they have a square in their downtown, and they have an ice ribbon as well. So our downtown plaza has ice skating in the winter, which if you could see outside my window, there's snow pouring down as we speak. And then we have splash pads in the summer. And we also have a stage there. So in looking at Rapid City, and we also looked at a few other cities nationally, but Rapid City was really our sister city in this approach. We asked them about their metrics locally and how they kept track of that, foot traffic, things of that nature. So we use a system that tracks cell phone data. So we're able to analyze how many people come in year by year and just assess that, our concert counts, our signature events, how many folks are we drawing, where are they coming from, where do they go after they leave Indian Creek Plaza. So that's something we do pretty diligently here locally is we track quite a bit. It can be slightly invasive, don't get me wrong, but effective nonetheless. So that's one way we look at our downtown activity and those types of things. But getting back to incentives, we have an Urban Renewal Commission. It's a body of 7 decision makers that we bring projects to in order to grant these incentives. So that job creation grant that I referenced, we have a mechanism to report to those commissioners to make sure that not only do the jobs qualify for this incentive, but also just update reports. I mentioned that $200,000 that we allocate toward this grant. We don't just give them the $200,000 up front. We do annual or quarterly checks on the businesses that receive the incentive. So each quarter, we'll do an assessment with that company through our finance department. We'll assess how much they're paying through wages, benefits, et cetera. We'll bring that back to the commission so the commission feels comfortable enough to move forward with cutting a check to that company each quarter. So $25,000 increments. So that's one way we do it. The other way is we when working with our Canyon County commissioners and the assessor's office, they do checks as well when they grant a property tax exemption. I don't know if it's quarterly, but I know they do it periodically throughout the year just to assess and make sure that the company is growing at the level that they had anticipated as when they granted the incentive. So a number of, I would say, layers of tracking that we do, not just from our downtown, but also with regard to the incentives that we.
I think it's so important. And you guys are doing traditional methods that I've heard of, but also tracking the cell phones. I haven't heard that one. We may want to talk about that one offline. But no, I think it's so important for the community members to know that you guys are utilizing, which, in a lot of ways, taxpayer dollars to create long-term benefit. And, that can be just a pie in the sky thing. But when you start to track it with metrics and having even commissions to distribute the money, so it's not all up front, you're being thoughtful and a great steward of taxpayer dollars. I think one step further than that is, how do you guys communicate these successes, or how do you communicate maybe if something isn't going right? How are new projects communicated to the community members, and where can they find out even while things are being brought into their neighborhood?
Yeah, great question. We have a pretty robust Facebook presence through economic development. We have our own page and a great following. So we make announcements there periodically and just updates on different projects that are coming in so that folks online understand the impacts that are being made here locally. I will say that Facebook and certain pages, even social media as a whole, there's just a lot of misinformation that you have to combat and refute at times. And for us, we've had to be more intentional or deliberate on our messaging and getting the positive messages out and making sure that folks understand the impacts that are being made with the investments that are coming in. So that's been something new for us. I would say relatively new, at least new since my tenure here at the city of a little more than 5 years. So yeah, that's one way we get the word out. The other way is our urban renewal meetings are streamed through YouTube. So those are public meetings, but we also have that online capability where folks, if they're not able to attend in person, which they often aren't, we don't see a ton of community member activity there in terms of attendance, but those YouTube videos are there and they're recorded and available. So that's a good way to do it. We have requests for proposals through Urban Renewal that are available, and we work with our media partners to get that in the newspaper. I know that's a foreign word to certain demographics that are probably maybe listening or watching or whatever the case may be. But we definitely want to make sure that newspaper presence is available. So the Idaho Press and the Idaho Statesman, at times we publish those opportunities for development on those platforms. So that's important for us, just to continue to get the word out, continue to be transparent. We understand that some of the impacts, I would say federally, right, with the federal government and even the media there, has created some slight distrust with people locally, and it trickles into local government. So however you want to slice it, there's just been a lot of movement with the media as a whole. And we just want to make sure within the city of Caldwell that we get the word out and it's done well, and we continue to be transparent and open with our communication as it relates to the public.
You said a lot there, and you're not the only area that is dealing with that misinformation. That is something I hear quite often. And another thing that has been bubbling up amongst economic developers that I've spoken to is even when you have community meeting, it's the people that, not always, and I don't want to say a blanket statement, but it's typically the squeaky wheels. It's people that have really great experience and are trying to do more or have something that they need to get accomplished, or people that have had a horrible experience. And that is a population of the community that you need to address for sure. That, it's such a small percentage of the actual people that you want to actually touch. And a lot of those people are working during those times or have children. I got a 7-month-old. It's hard to get to a local community meeting all the time. So I love the fact that you guys are doing things like live streaming with what I'm doing here. Is the reason I do what I do is because there's so many people doing great work like yourself, but there's no megaphone for just doing your job and effectually being a great steward of taxpayer dollars. There's not a lot of articles of that. So I applaud you for making a way to make sure that people do have that outlet. I am going to push you on the spot because a lot of the listeners are millennial and Gen Z. What are some ways that you are making it more amenable for them to be civically engaged? What are some ways or outreach that you're doing to target those populations? Because they may not be on Facebook and other platforms, or even how you think about them when you're strategic planning. So just how are you engaging that population of people?
Yeah, great question. And we've done some work there as well, right? We understand that being civically engaged is not a natural progression for many of us. And I have 4 kids myself, so my hands are always tied. I'm probably fidgety right now just because I'm so used to moving, right? That's just the nature of how life is and how fast it moves. But we do a ton of outreach with the school district. So Caldwell School District, we have Valley View School District here as well. So we stay closely tied to them. Our mayor is he takes a very personal approach to leadership. So he goes to many events that are associated with both districts. But on top of that, we have a Mayor's Youth Advisory Council through the city of Caldwell, and we get our youth involved that way. So high school students will come and partake in that. I think there's 30 or so students that are involved in that currently, but all of our events and things like that, they help to really facilitate and coordinate a lot of the events that take place. But more than that, understand just the civic process locally and just recognize the tropes of what that looks like. And man, what an opportunity for students to be involved that way. We have scholarship opportunities that are formed as a result of participation in that. They take students out to Washington, D.C. each year as a kind of an annual trip that the mayor is involved in. And it is a cool deal. So I think there's a lot of focus on how we can touch the millennials, the future generations of the Caldwell community, because that's going to be an important emphasis. When I'm long gone, right, from my legacy, my hope is that I create something here that lasts far beyond my lifespan, right, and can touch lives into many, many generations. So that's what motivates me each day, is to come in and on these snowy days that you see out my window here, perhaps you don't, but just know what's happening right now. But yeah, that's what gets me out of bed and helps me to come in and say, man, I want to make an impact. And that's why this work that we do, although it can be challenging, is so fulfilling, because each project, is going to make a tax-based impact, but more than that, it's something that the community can enjoy for many, many, many years.
Oh, you guys are very thoughtful about it. That's been probably one of the more complete answers around having an actual strategy, having an actual youth advisory commission in which they could get some experience. And then furthermore, you get a scholarship and then come out to DC. So I love that you guys are really forward thinking, and, just listening to you, it sounds like the average person in Caldwell is about 30 years old. So it seems like you guys are understanding of where things are going in the future. And that brings to my head, I know I appreciate it because I'm at that place in my career too, where legacy is so important. and leaving something better than when you found it. What is your personal view of where Caldwell will be in, call it 5, maybe even 10 years from now? And if you want to go further, you can go even further.
Love it. Love it. So Caldwell's trajectory in terms of growth, I will just continue to preach agribusiness. It's going to be an important aspect of the work that we do today and moving forward. We actually just signed a lease for Finlay Food Coatings to go into occupy a industrial building here in Sky Ranch, which is not far from my office, just outside the doors here. But they will be opening a 40,000 square foot food processing facility. They work really closely with an entity named Simplot Foods, which is really a national force as it relates to French fries. They produce many of the French fries that are at a local McDonald's that you go to, even where you're based. And it's pretty cool to see that here in Caldwell, you have food that leaves your state and goes far beyond the boundaries of Idaho. I know they talked a lot about Wendy's and Burger King and others, but Finlay Food Coatings puts the coating on the French fries, depending on who they're manufacturing the product for. So they'll be opening a location here. They're based out of New Zealand, and they'll have a presence here. So on that note, foreign direct investment, that's going to be another aspect of growth for us moving forward, where we're going to see more of a touch point with that. We have a lot of natural product here in terms of just having the ag relationship. As we grow as a city and the city limits, the periphery of Caldwell is such that you have so many commodities around us. I think there's 60 plus different commodities that are cropped here. And we have, everything from seed processing to, we have, hay, alfalfa, we have, potatoes, of course, onions. I mean, there's a bunch of that. Winter wheat, there's so many commodities that come to mind. So all that's here that's naturally based. We also have a wine region called the Sunny Slope Wine Trail, and there's about 19 wineries that are based here in and outside of Caldwell, kind of in Canyon County, but close enough to be dangerous. It's about 15 minutes from our downtown core. And I would say it's 1,300 or so acres of ag land that is focused on the wine region and the wine industry. It's part of the Snake River American Viticulture Association, AVA, and it's a fantastic thing for us. So we're going to continue to see that grow. So our 19 wineries will turn into 30 plus, I'm sure, in the next 5 to 10 years. It's just growing rapidly out there, and it's becoming quite a tourist draw as well for us. Lastly, I would say our urban renewal district, our new one in Northwest Caldwell. Right now, it's about 1,000 acres of land that hasn't been developed, and we're going to see that really materialize over the next 5 years. We have a C-store that's going out there that will be open later this year, and that's going to start creating momentum in that area. Right now, you drive by and you're looking around at some pastures and fields and open space, but we're in the midst of creating some pretty strong infrastructure improvements out there. We just built a water line through ARPA funds that came in through the city that connects 2 highway systems out there. We're going to be developing some roadways through urban renewal. So there's a lot of things to come on that front. And again, that's more of a shovel-ready approach that some cities like to pursue and others perhaps don't. They kind of wait and see. But for us in Caldwell, we're a little more aggressive on that front, where we want to create an atmosphere where development can occur. So that's important for us. But I would say those things are top of mind as we look at the 5 to 10 year horizon.
One, I think that shovel-ready approach is really smart and goes to almost another incentive. One of the quiet incentives that people have is the time to actually develop. And if you're telling me, like, my infrastructure is ready, this thing's ready to go, that cuts down a lot of time. Just forget the cost, just the time it takes. And, working with developers, time is very much money. So I think that's such a forward-thinking way to do it. And also, you're putting your money where your mouth is. And I'm sure it's had great effects. I wanted to double click. Can you talk about the foreign direct investment that you kind of think is coming, that is coming into Caldwell, but just how that process goes for our listeners that aren't aware of that?
Yeah. So actually, interestingly, our Department of Commerce through the state of Idaho, so our business attraction team, they are currently in Malaysia. So they're doing some recruitment efforts there, and traveling abroad is critical. So they're out there hopefully talking about Caldwell, doing their dance and making sure that folks are aware of opportunities that exist here as it relates to the manufacturing that they're doing abroad. So that's important. But one thing I will say about the city of Caldwell, and particularly with my predecessor, Steve Foltz, he was able to establish a foreign trade zone here locally. And we are the magnet site, Caldwell is, for the foreign trade zone 280. And the foreign trade zone, what that is basically it's an area of the city, and this is strange, I think, for the layperson that's listening to this, I'm sure, but it's outside of the U.S. Customs. So when you have a product that arrives, you'll pay duty or a fee on that product as it comes in. Foreign trade zones are duty deferral. So as it comes into the foreign trade zone 280, you don't pay any duty on the product until it leaves your facility. And if it leaves your facility as something other than what it came in as, so if you have a vacuum and you take the engine out of the vacuum and you create something different, you only pay duty on what leaves your facility. So the waste you don't have to pay on. In some cases, if it's redistributed internationally, then it never touched the United States soil. So there's not duty that's ascribed to it. So there's some cases like that as well. So there's some advantages, I would say, incentive-wise with the foreign trade zones that are here. But more importantly, I think it showcases a real strong emphasis on, foreign direct investment and what it can do locally. So it tells our foreign partners that are out there that may be here currently, but or maybe considering Idaho in the future, that we want their business, that we want to see them come and locate here, and that we're doing everything we can to support their efforts to grow and to locate here.
I love that. So you guys are not just pounding the pavement domestically, pounding the pavement internationally. Mr. Foltz seems like he did some good stuff. Forward thinking, creating more ways to encourage business in the area. I mean, it seems like you're definitely taking it and run with it. So I'm super excited. Now, the one thing I have to ask, I know everything's not perfect. What are some challenges of your role? Or even, I've heard things, I don't want to skew it, but one of the things you said was reputation. Or perception, excuse me. People have told me how perception has been like a tough thing for them, but what's maybe one challenge you have or something that you would just like snap your fingers and change if you could?
Yeah. So for us, it pertains to growth. I mean, that is the focus here. That is the source of, I would say, most of the disagreements that folks have locally. It's really hard to pin us down with our identity because we're changing so rapidly. There's a really strong Western heritage here. We actually have the Caldwell Night Rodeo that's based in Caldwell, Idaho, and it takes place in August. And so it's really typically the warmest time of year here locally. So, but it's an outdoor rodeo. It's a top 5 outdoor rodeo in the nation. We have 50,000 people that travel to Caldwell or that come and visit to see that rodeo take place. It is absolutely amazing. I told you earlier, I love football, basketball, baseball, all the sports, but having that appreciation for the rodeo is just incredible. And seeing what it does for the local economy with tourism, all those good things, but more than anything, just the environment. It's just amazing. So I only say that to showcase why the Western heritage is so important. And I mentioned agriculture as well. So when folks feel like they're losing elements of that or growing into, I would say, a more modern Western heritage that has hotels and grocery stores and Home Depot that's under construction, sometimes that's not as well received as what someone in my role might hope for. So yeah, Jonathan, I'm either loved or hated locally, right? Because that's just kind of the way things are. But ultimately, what we try to do is first and foremost empathize with the local community, continue to communicate and focus on those local historical elements that made Caldwell who we are. So keeping that intact as much as possible. And then working in tandem with Canyon County on our impact area so that we grow within the city limits, but keeping strong boundaries so that we're not encroaching on areas that are a little more sacred, right? Like the wine region that I referenced and some of these agricultural areas that have been farmed for many, many years. Fun fact for Caldwell is we're the 39th largest county out of 44, but we have the most farmland most farms, I would say, that in the state of Idaho county-wise. So Canyon County is number one in that arena. So there are a lot of farms here, either size from 1 to 250 to 300 acres, right? It varies in size and scope. But farming, agriculture, all that is so important, particularly on the periphery, the outskirts of Caldwell. So we just want to maintain that, retain it, and make sure that's key and central to our growth strategy and the things that we hope to accomplish in the future.
Wow. Being loved and hated at the same time is a tough place to be. Definitely tough to balance. But that brings up just a good, when you, and this, I envy you, but I don't envy you at the same time. When you're thinking of balancing, bringing in the new with retaining and working with businesses that are currently in your locality, how do you make sure that you're able to maintain that balance? You talked a little bit about balancing the historical aspect, but specifically with like business retention, how do you kind of balance that?
Yeah, continue to keep the communication strong is so important. I know that sounds trite, but we work diligently to communicate with our business partners. One of the things that we pride ourselves in locally is our relationships with the business community. I could pick up my phone and call just about every restaurant in downtown Caldwell by the owners. I know them by name. You know, you walk around and you feel a very tight-knit perspective. We have our community is about 75,000 people. We were tabbed at 73,420 as of 2024. So despite our growth and our size, we maintain some of that small town perspective that's important for people here locally, but also for the work that we do here in economic development. Yeah, staying in touch with them, making sure that we're growing the right way, that we have aspects of I would say the entertainment cycle that we need, the retail commercial elements that we need. We are working on a pretty sizable amphitheater that is looking to come into Caldwell. That's another exciting addition to the community that will be an exceptional tourism draw and all those other things, but also help keep our restaurants and our business atmosphere in our downtown afloat. So that's something we're working on diligently. As it relates to our partners in the business industry, we constantly work with them on efforts to either retain their workforce or expand it. So that is a direct tie for us to our relationships with the College of Idaho. That college has been here since, the late 1800s. I think it was established when the city of Caldwell was established, if not slightly before. So it's the oldest academic institution in the state of Idaho. It's about 1,000 students or so. It's a liberal arts college. But let me tell you this. I know I'm bragging a little bit, but I have to. Their basketball team won the national championship in 2022, and they're currently ranked number 3 in the nation in basketball in the NAIA, which is so exciting. Their football program was in the Final Four a couple years ago and is constantly ranked in the top 10. Academically, they are just recognized across the country for all that they do, but just high level of academic achievement there. And they have an 18% international student base. So it's actually been called the most diverse college in the state of Idaho from that standpoint, international student base. So I'll go to a coffee shop in our downtown called Flying M, and I'll see students speaking in different languages and whatnot. It's really, really cool. I mean, we're sitting here in Caldwell, Idaho, and you're hearing students speaking different languages, which you wouldn't expect on the surface, but certainly happens more times than not. And that's a cool aspect of having a thriving liberal arts college nearby. So I would just say relationships, keeping partnerships alive, and just making sure we're all in tune together. The last thing I'll mention, and I know I'm blabbing right now and going too far, but I'll finish this out and won't talk anymore. But our comprehensive plan is something that we're revamping this year, and we did a high level of outreach. So we went schools. So working with our school districts, we actually had booths set up at the schools. We had outreach efforts that took place at city facilities. So here at the airport, which is where my office is located, I'm at the Caldwell Executive Airport. We had them at our train depot in our downtown. We had sessions that were based online. So we went above and beyond to make sure that we were touching every corner of our community just to get the input that was necessary to incorporate different aspects of zoning and comp plan designs into our growth strategy for the future.
I love that. When I speak to people and they're talking about how they're going to the schools, like going to higher education, even going to high schools, when they're doing their strategic planning, like I just think that's so smart. We talk about we're preparing to leave a legacy for the next generation. But the people that are really going to be benefiting from these long-term plans are on the college campuses, are in the high schools. So I think you guys are doing it so well. And I definitely appreciate that. And I think it is reflective of the fact that you said the average person in Caldwell is 30 years old. So it just seems like you guys just get it. which I don't say all the time, but I appreciate that. Last question I have is, what's one thing you're proud of? You spoke about a lot of different things, and I'm very proud of them all, but what is something either that you've done in the community or something that's coming and there's no NDA around it you could share with us?
Oh man, that is a loaded question. So that is something. Let me think. I will say the thing that I'm most proud of is the change in our perception. I mentioned to you that we had some challenges there. So when I first came to the city, I'll just give you a small example. I came over from Boise State University, and Boise State is literally 25 minutes away from where I'm sitting right now. And folks at the university where I was working, my colleagues and whatnot, were congratulating me on this new role, but also had some concerns saying, "Hey, you sure you want to get out to Caldwell? Like, is that the best move for you, right?" So that just gives you a small taste in some of the perception challenges that we had. And I'll say this, some of it was warranted, some was not, right? That's just usually the truth is somewhere in the middle. That's what I like to say. But ultimately, we had some gang challenges years ago. We had some really, dilapidated buildings in our downtown, and we weren't growing as a community. People were leaving the community. So that growth rate that I mentioned earlier at 3.96% wasn't evident years ago. So I'm very proud of the community coming together, really leaning on our partners, such as the college, the county, because we're the county seat of Canyon County. We leaned on the rodeo, the school districts, everybody in between to build ourselves up. Because when you have a poor perception, when you have a subpar reputation, folks aren't just really leaning into the opportunities to invest in your community. You have to invest in yourself first. So that was really important. So we have a creek that runs through our downtown right now, and it was covered by concrete years ago. And we uncovered that creek in the early 2000s. And then we hit the downturn in the economy in 2008, and it just took a long time for it to come into its form today, right, as it is today. So in the course of that uncovering of the creek for our downtown, we also built the Indian Creek Plaza, which I referenced, and that opened, I would say, 8 months before I started. So it was very, very new and fresh. So I'm also proud of the fact that I have a very small imprint on the success of Indian Creek Plaza. It is an absolute destination for not only the valley, the Treasure Valley or the Boise Metro, but also the region as a whole. We see people come in. I mentioned that cell phone data. We see people come in from Oregon, from Washington, from Utah, from Colorado, even from as far as Texas and elsewhere, into the Caldwell community to visit Indian Creek Plaza, to go ice skating. We had 62,000 ice skaters last year. When I first started with the city, we were averaging around 20,000 ice skaters. It has seen immense growth. We've had 30 or so new businesses open in our downtown. So I'm very proud of not only the success of Indian Creek Plaza, but the perception and the changes that have taken place in Caldwell. Now Caldwell, quite frankly, is a place to be. And folks around the Boise Metro are always complimenting us on that and saying, gosh, Caldwell is the next city. We love seeing the progress there. It's just fantastic. The last thing I'll mention is we have our Winter Wonderland event, and we light up the downtown every winter from November to about February, and we have 1 million lights in our downtown. We just ran the numbers on that, Jonathan, and we had 200,000 unique visits into downtown. And then we had about 400,000 or so recurring visits in our downtown just during that time frame, Winter Wonderland. So it's become an absolute spectacle and really a tradition for a lot of families here during the Christmas season. So it's like a Hallmark movie downtown. We love it and we pride ourselves in it. So just excited about all those things, Jonathan, but more importantly, just the perception and the change in how people think about the city of Caldwell.
That's impressive. And I know, speaking to so many people, how important perception is. And you hit the nail on the head. Until you invest in yourself, until you make it a destination, certain businesses just aren't coming, certain people aren't coming. But it sounds like you guys have truly taken the time from a business perspective to make it business friendly, from a community perspective to get all the information from all the different stakeholders involved, to an aesthetic perspective. 1 million lights compared to, what was it, 73,000 people? Good God, light per capita ratio is incredible. And yeah, just hearing, 200,000 odd people, unique people, and then probably even more impressive is the recurring people that continue to go back at around over 400,000. So, Steven, what you're doing in Caldwell is impressive. Like I said, we love an underdog story. It sounds like you guys are, going through the mud, dusting yourself off, and then now people saying you're next up. That has to feel great. And it's a credit to you and a credit to the people in your community. Excited to continue to watch. I'll be continuing to learn as much as I can. Say I talked to you before you guys are the next New York or whatever it is, y'all. I got a chance to speak to you, but for all the people listening, where can they reach out to you? Where can they get updates on Caldwell?
Yeah, Jonathan, thank you so much for your kind words. And honestly, it's a privilege. It's a privilege to be a part of it. We had a mayor previously for 24 years. So he cast a vision that was strong for the city. And that's important as well, just to have some steady leadership. It's very uncommon. So our new mayor is part of that previous administration. He was a planner years ago, and he stepped into the mayor position, but he's carrying out that legacy. I think that's something too that providentially has allowed us to step into this new season of growth in the city of Caldwell. But in terms of getting in touch, I love that. I mean, LinkedIn is something that, I'm on and I'm available on. So that's first and foremost something that anybody can reach out to me on. We also have the city of Caldwell has a website, but we have an economic development website that is available for folks that are interested in learning more about the community and those types of things. We have a Facebook page that I referenced, an economic development Facebook page that's unique to this department where we make announcements. I told you about a Home Depot that's under construction. We have a Winco grocery store that's coming as well. Winco just purchased 35 acres in the community, so we'll be announcing that formally here in the near future. All the retail announcements and those types of things are on there as well. So that's always something to stay closely tied to. And then we have an article that's coming out in Business View magazine that's going to reference the city of Caldwell. And then lastly, Livability magazine. We have a feature that is forthcoming as well. So we're working on that as we speak. So that's something to look out for and to pay attention to. Yeah, given our success in a short time frame, and I attribute it all to, the great people in this community that have fought so hard for many years to make this thing happen. But it's put a little bit of a spotlight on us, and we just want to, from my standpoint, I want to make sure to steward it well and to continue to share the story and to share that David and Goliath story and make sure people are aware that, this is not overnight. It's a 20-year plan that has come to fruition, and we're excited to step into it and to reap the benefits of it as a community.
I love it. That's incredible. A 20-year march, the continuity of leadership, passing the torch, and now you guys are getting written up in all the big magazines, and that perception is already changed, but I can see how it's going to continue to change even more, my brother. That is, unless you have anything more to say to the people, because I definitely want to.
You know what? I appreciate it. I think we covered a variety of things today. I probably talk way too much, but I like to quote Deion Sanders, man. We coming. That's what that's the next thing for us. And we are just scratching the surface of our potential, and we look forward to what the future holds for us. God willing, we have some good things in place that we feel are going to lead us into the future.
Great way to end the episode. Thank you all for tuning in to the Jentry podcast. Economic developer of the city of Caldwell, Steven Jenkins, signing out, letting everybody know we coming. Thank you.
Love it. Thank you, Jonathan.